What's going on YouTube? This is D's Band Speaks and welcome back to my channel. Oh, Mamdani. The reason why I like Mamdani is the same reason why I kind of like Trump. They're actually doing something different. They're not doing the same old, we can do something for the people, we're not corrupt. Then next thing you know, nothing gets done, or it's the same old. He is courageous. He's the first one to say he's not going to Israel in public. He's the first. That's not why I like him. The fact is, he's not doing the same script. I like people who change the system. He is one person, as just like Trump. To me, okay, my motherfucking opinion of why I voted for him. He definitely represents something that most people are afraid to say out loud. He represents going against corporate interests, and it appears like, it might not be true, that he's actually doing what he says he's going to do. Now, when it comes to real estate, if you have not been a victim of real estate fraud or deed theft or anything of that nature, you might not understand what he's doing. One of the reasons why New York City is so expensive, one of the reasons is because there are tons of empty sitting apartments. And because of these empty apartments, everything else goes up, supply and demand. If your supply is low, you could demand higher money. When it comes to rent stabilized apartments, there are a lot of them still in the city. But unfortunately, these landlords who own them, the ones you're supposed to feel sorry for, they could afford to keep them empty because they want to charge as much as they want to, without taking into consideration of people's wealth. And if there's up to them, a lot of these landlords would care nothing about their pockets. It'll be nothing but people who could afford $5,000 worth of rent, okay, if they had it their way. So of course we need to have the equalizer, which is the law, who understands that most people don't make that kind of money. Here in Harlem, one bedroom can cost you $2,800 and up. A one bedroom. I remember back in the day here about one bedrooms being $1,300, $1,500. Now, the one bedroom price is now the studio price, $1,500. Not even, sorry. Studios are now $2,000 a month, $1,800 on the low end, $2,200 on a regular basis now. Single rooms are like $1,300. So if you have a room costs a one bedroom apartment prices these days. So these landlords are over here crying about, oh, it's not fair. You are charging $1,300 for a single room, but you want us to feel bad for you, right? Now, I understand there's always two perspectives, but I'm coming from the tenant's perspective. I live in a real estate place. I'm ready to leave, and when I do leave, I'm not going to pay $2,200 for a studio. I'd rather go to a whole different state. I might as well go to a whole different country for that kind of money. I'll be in a damn mansion in some countries. So, with that being said, what Mamdani is trying to do is take these landlords who are hoarding these buildings, especially if they're slumlords holding up. They just have so many violations, so many things that they're just not doing because they're doing a hissy fit. And trust me when I say a lot of these people are already rich. Like, they have money already. They just want to be richer. There's no quench to their thirst of money.
And Socialist Mayor Zohran Mamdani, he says that he's going to take some aggressive legal actions against these landlords if they don't get their buildings up to code. Now, potentially, he says that he can transfer private property back to the community.
So, if you own a home in New York City, pretty soon that might change.
Jordan, slumlord, okay? He didn't say if you own a home, if you are a slumlord, two different things.
Because New York's socialist mayor is rolling out his plans to take those away from landlords he says aren't doing a great job. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of apartments owned by the city itself, already in the mayor's possession, are so lousy nobody can live in them. And you know who could use those? The voters who just elected communism and can't understand why their rents keep going.
Look, we need a little bit of both, okay? We can't just have pure capitalism. Not everyone is a able-bodied, functioning person. And even if there are still a limited amount of jobs, okay? There's not an unlimited amount of jobs. It's still limited. So what happens is everyone's qualified. Let's say everyone has the same ability to do the same thing. Everybody, right? There's 100,000 people who have the same ability. They're just as, how you say, damn, what's wrong with my brain today? They are just as able-bodied as someone else. They are able to do the same things. 100,000 people, right? But you only have 100 jobs. 100 people get the jobs. What about the other people? Like, understand, like, there's not enough jobs to go around for everyone to be qualified to have the same type of lifestyle. That's what's going on with capitalism. It's like everyone's looked at as equal. Everyone's not equal. People have different circumstances. People have one-parent households. Some people have disabilities. Some people have physical disabilities. So you have to take that into consideration. Everyone is not up here at the same time. Now, when you have people trying to level the playing field, we understand, like, DEI programs, this is for a reason. It's not that people want you to just hire someone because they're black. It's more like this person's qualified too, but you're overlooking him because you're looking over there. What about over here? The problem is this perfect world of capitalism does not really exist. You have to worry about proximity, being in the right room at the right time, okay? Some people have that privilege, just being in the proximity to the people who could change your life. Versus you live in a whole other town when there's no connection, there's no industry. So just this whole concept of, it's capitalism, you need a little bit of both. Not everyone has the same opportunities. Or even if they did, they have to be there at the right,
This way.
Yeah, so this was all part of Mayor Mamdani's campaign that got him elected here. Under the law, though, it is possible for the city to seize private property. Last year, the city seized a building.
This is not just a black thing. This is every person thing. Everybody's going through the same thing. The rents are crazy.
From an owner who owed nearly $28 million in taxes and fines. Now, that was turned over to a nonprofit.
Tens of thousands, if not over $100,000 to rent it. You have to remove the trash and rubbish. You have to then make it lead safe. You have to remove the walls.
The average rent in this building is around $980 a month, but operating a rent-stabilized apartment can reach anywhere upwards of $1,350 a month.
Well, today, tenants are rallying for a rent freeze. That's what the mayor campaigned on. The mayor appoints the board. He appointed 6 new members this year out of 9, so they can make this decision. It's still a possibility.
Doesn't that hurt tenants?
It does, but you know what tenants are hurt the most? The 178,000 tenants who are tenants of New York City in apartments owned by the New York City Housing Authority. So if the mayor wants to throw
night is bad though. Like, there's people who have no heat. Like, or they have, they just have nothing going on and they have to keep on waiting because apparently with NYCHA they don't have enough maintenance people to take care of every single problem. So, yeah.
shade at bad landlords, why doesn't he look at the worst landlord in New York City, which is New York City itself?
So as the mayor rolls out his plan to capture properties, he's going to speed that up by freezing the rents first so they fail. And what nobody's talking about is these two things, the frozen rent and the confiscations. They are part of a plan to radically transform New York City and bring in socialism in a way that no one will ever be able to stop. And this is not about helping people because New York City itself already has thousands of affordable apartments in its possession that nobody can live in. These are supposed to be for working New Yorkers who need a helping hand, but they help.
It used to be for working New Yorkers. The projects used to be for people who work like city jobs, mailmen, city bus drivers, train conductors. At some point, it became for lower income people. So what it used to be is one thing, but how it is now is two different things. Nobody in their right mind wants to live in the projects, know what kind of people are in there. There's something called City FEPS. If you know what City FEPS is basically a shelter system. A shelter program. So people who work in the shelter, they get a City FEPS voucher, and then they're able to go live in certain places. Some new buildings, some old buildings, but the type of people that are in there are typically people who have disabilities, physical disabilities. I mean, mental too. Or people who just on drugs. Who wants to live around people like that if they're going to be a nuisance? So that's what the projects represents. Not everyone in the projects is ghetto. Not everyone in projects are, on drugs. There are a lot of people in projects who are actually just working class people who happen to not make a lot of money. That's also true. But the whole concept of the projects is people who want to be on Section 8 for the rest of their life. And typically those people don't have a lot of aspirations in life. They are pretty much happy where they are.
Help zero people right now because there's zero money to fix these places up, as the communism we've already got has already failed. At the same time, the apartments the mayor wants to seize are so terrible, nobody can live in these either. Once again, because of rules and regulations that take away profit, because to communists, no one's supposed to have profit. And if the city already has thousands of apartments of its own that it can't manage and it wants to sweep more apartments into that operation, what's that gonna look like? Is that gonna help people? No. And as rents in Manhattan continue skyrocketing, folks are wondering when the mayor's promise of an affordable city everyone can live in due to communism is going to materialize. But sadly for them, it's never going to happen, because in order for socialists to deliver on promises, they've got to sweep away all competition for that future, which means eliminating private property and eliminating the ability of people to build wealth on.
How do I feel about that? As someone who wants to own real estate eventually, and the conquest of like profit and taking over buildings and putting my own tenants in there for loan profit. I mean, actually, I don't want to deal with that. It's actually a stressful job. It's just very profitable. I too want to do it because I told this is how you're supposed to make money, real money, right? It's not that there's not other things out there, but this is a hustle. How would I feel if it was taken away? I don't know about that. My thing is, I just think rent should be affordable. That's my only thing. Affordability is an issue. And again, there's not enough supply for the demand. But let's say if Mamdani gets all these empty apartments, available again, rent should go down because there should be way more apartments in stock at the same time. What if those apartments rent out? Then what?
On their own, which means poverty-inducing socialism is the only future. And that brings us to the real plan. None of this is going to make New York City more affordable at all, because this isn't about saving people money. It's not about helping people. It's about making sure there's only one way, or the highway, because to a socialist regime, they think anyone owning anything is wrong. It should be illegal for people to have private property, because that's the problem in the world. Private things. Everything should be owned by the quote-unquote community, which is why.
Well, there's a video I'm about to show after this one is about how the Chinese are coming to privatize Jamaica, and there was one hotel that's been burnt down because they wanted to privatize the beach. So the same people who had access to the beach their entire lives, all of a sudden now is private property. You have to pay to get in now. And then Jamaica said, hell, mother effing no, we don't care what deal you made with the government. You are not taking our private, our beach, our public beach for your private interests. So this is where capitalism is wrong. If someone wants to buy your entire block, you have to move out. What if someone just buys everything? What if Elon Musk takes his $1 trillion and buys a whole damn state? How would you feel? You have to get out that state because he's now owned by private property. You ain't gonna like that, are you?
Why the city wants to confiscate buildings and give them away. Not to just anyone, but to government-connected nonprofits who are gonna take them over and spend everyone's money as fast as they can. Because the goal here is to get rid of that money. You can't have people who own anything and make their lives better or other people's lives better, because that system will exist in opposition to the state and the housing seizures that are about to rock New York City.
Yeah, so this was all part of Mayor Mamdani's campaign that got him elected here. For Under the law, though, it is possible for the city to seize private property. Last year, the city seized a building from an owner who owed nearly $28 million in taxes and fines. Now, that was turned over to a nonprofit that worked with the tenants. But Mamdani's housing policies...
please keep out of these motherfucking nonprofits. It's like, to me, it's like there's no different than NGOs. Just because we understand what they're supposed to be doing, please have someone look at them and see what they're doing with it, because they could put their hands in the cookie jar too. Okay? I don't trust nobody when they have too much access.
Raising some concerns here with New Yorkers, fearing that this could lead to a dangerous path towards Marxism. Critics point to comments that the city's tenant director made, Sia Weaver. She says that property ownership is racist.
Okay, so obviously that's not true. But here's the problem with all of this. The city wants to go out and go after buildings that it says are in a state of utter disrepair, and that they say the landlords have failed in their duty and don't even deserve to be landlords anymore. So the city wants to take these places away because the city wants to do the right thing for the renters, and it wants to get rid of these landlords. Never mind the fact that these landlords aren't allowed to make money with their properties, as you're going to see soon, because of the communism we already have. But then the other problem with this is that the city already has a whole bunch of apartments, and a news agency in New York just checked up on them and gave the city an F.
According to NYCHA data, by the end of March of this year, there were more than 6,200 apartments classified as vacant, more than 3,700 units classified as non-dwelling, and nearly 700 units classified as move-in or pre-selected for a future tenant. That's a total of about 10,654 empty NYCHA apartments.
That's wild. Over 10,000 apartments that nobody can live in. That's 10,000 reasons for the city not to get their little fingers on one extra apartment, because you know what? That apartment's not going to fare better than the 10,000 empty ones. But now the plan is to add even more apartments to these failing numbers, which is supposed to make New York City more affordable. How on earth is that going to happen if these are going to become places zero people will live in? None of this is designed to make the people who just elected a self-proclaimed socialist rich, wealthy, and financially independent. Socialism doesn't work if people are independent. It needs as many people dependent upon the government as absolutely possible. And as you're about to see, these buildings that the mayor has his sights set on, they're failing because of the communism we already have. Watch this.
Step inside this one-bedroom, rent-stabilized apartment in Washington Heights. It's frozen in time. No one has lived here since the last tenant moved out about 7 years ago.
What would it take to bring a unit like this back online?
Yeah, so this is a depiction of the law in action. This unit became vacant after the 2019 rent laws. Tens of thousands, if not over $100,000 to rent it. You have to remove the trash and rubbish. You have to then make it lead safe. You have to remove the walls.
Oh, wow. So here you have an apartment that's an absolute disaster. And what you're seeing on the screen right here.
Here's my idea. Let's say if I wanted that apartment, right, and I knew what came with the cost for the landlord. This might not sound educated because I'm just throwing it out there. What if I take on the cost? Let's say if I want this one-bedroom apartment rent stabilized, but I'll do the repairs myself. How about that?
Here should not exist because we're in a housing crisis. New York City has the highest rents in the entire country. And here we have a place that's big. It's got multiple rooms. It looks like a two-bedroom apartment. No one can live there. Why is this happening? Well, it's simple. The city's already essentially frozen the rent on these places. They've already passed laws that stop these places from making any money by capping what the landlords can earn. And this is called rent stabilization, and it affects about half the apartments in New York City already. That's why you can have rents in some parts of Manhattan that are $5,000 a month, and that's how you can have record landlord profits, while at the exact same time you have buildings that are failing and you have landlords that can't make a buck. That should not exist. Instead, someone should be living here. And if you took the tens of thousands of apartments, some people estimate it's as high as 20 or 30,000 of these apartments that are just floating around out there, totally unrenovated, no one's living in them, and you let people live in them, that would greatly help housing prices. But helping housing prices can only happen in a socialist system if nobody earns money and benefits themselves after. It has to be the government who benefits, so there's no profit allowed whatsoever. And because there's no profit allowed, there's no money to fix stuff, and when you run out of money, stuff falls apart.
It's all bubbling. This is all cracking.
Keisha Cruz's patience is worn as thin as the paint on her teenage daughter's walls.
Guess where she lives?
Complaining since, like I said, since I moved in.
That's 17 years of what she describes as recurring issues, from plaster problems to
they get sick, they're going to sue the city and make a lot of
plumbing
money.
predicaments.
Wow.
All at this New York City Housing Authority owned property at
Oh, so now we find out that the city of New York is the worst landlord of them all. You know what? The city that's out there acting all self-righteous wants to take buildings away from...
So what I'm hearing about is the city no longer want to be a landlord, so they're going to sell it to private owners. But the private owners, it won't just be purely private. It will be half private, half public, half private, half affordable. So they're going to take over the buildings. Some buildings will be just for profit, and that will supplement the other buildings, which is kind of affordable. So it's like some kind of big circle, a little complicated.
Landlords that it says aren't doing a good job, somebody should come along and take away their buildings because they're not doing a good job. This is deplorable, and this is the solution. This right here is what they want for everybody in every New York City apartment, because these buildings, how do they exist? They exist on other people's money, and there's just not enough money to fix them up. Apparently, the New York City Housing Authority, the largest public housing authority in the entire country, it's facing a capital shortage of $78 billion. That's a lot of money. They need $78 billion to get people to live in 10,000 apartments. That's insane. But don't worry, the mayor has a plan that he's touting, which is gonna fix all of this. And as you're about to see, it might actually make things worse.
City Hall will rewrite a legacy of neglect with the largest city capital commitment to NYCHA in decades.
Okay.
$5.6 billion over 5 years. And we will do all of this while ensuring that NYCHA remains publicly owned and publicly operated.
Wow. So they're facing a $78 billion shortfall. Says it in their own material. $78 billion is what they need. But here we're going to get $5 billion. That's less than 1% of what they're going to need. And it's not even happening all at once. It's happening over 5 years, which means that over 5 years, they're going to run out of money real quick. Nothing's going to get fixed. This is going to be even worse. But hey, it got people to cheer in front of the cameras. It got people to hold up signs that say that we're going to invest in stable home. No, we're not. No, that's not happening. It's not stability when you have a housing system that relies on other people's money and has already run out of it. That's going to collapse, literally and figuratively. But in a world where no one should own anything, this is exactly the plan. Everyone should be obligated to pay for everyone else's stuff, and if somebody can't pay, hey, they're supposed to get everything for free. That's how this works. But as you're about to see, the problem with a system like that is eventually you run out of people who are willing to throw their money away and get absolutely nothing for it. This happens when taxpayers get on a bus and take their money with them and go to another state. And this also happens when landlords who are forced to decide between whether they want to rent an apartment and lose money every single month or do nothing with that apartment and lose every single month make the obvious decision, which is something these people clamoring for rent freezes don't understand is already destroying where they live right now.
Rent freeze, I think we can win.
It's just unworkable, right? It's just unrealistic.
She's a landlord.
Everything rises, right? Our subway fares rise, right? Your Uber fares rise, groceries are rising, medical expenses are rising. Providing housing is not immune to that. We are, just like your utilities for your individual apartment are increasing, we're seeing that on the building side.
So the costs to operate a building do not stay in place. So you could freeze rents across New York City, but the cost to run those buildings do not stay frozen. That's something the people in the New York City Housing Authority are learning every single day. The costs to operate the largest public housing development in the country have not stood still. If they had, perhaps they would have had less than 10,000 empty apartments, but things don't work like that. They've got labor shortages, materials cost too much, they can't fix anything, repair times are going through the roof. Landlords are dealing with the exact same thing, and if we're gonna freeze rents in the city, it's gonna make a problem that is already so bad, landlords don't wanna renovate an apartment during a housing crisis, even worse. That's gonna result in less housing, that's gonna result in less opportunity, that's gonna result in more misery and more poverty. but that's all by design. Watch.
They remove the walls.
Kenny Burgos is the CEO of the New York Apartment Association. He says the average rent in this building is around $980 a month. But data from the Rent Guidelines Board shows operating a rent-stabilized apartment can reach anywhere upwards of $1,350 a month.
Owners have to decide on losing money per month by not renting this out, or losing an astronomical amount of money by putting money into the renovation, losing that renovation money, and also losing money month over month to run this apartment.
There we go. That explains why you have apartments that sit empty in this city. These numbers right here on the screen. And I've heard from many people say, well, these landlords, they're so greedy. You know, if they should just renovate the apartment, at least they're getting $980 a month. Like, no. They're not getting $980 a month. They're losing money no matter what. And then the argument becomes, well, they're losing less money. Well, actually, they're not, because if you have to spend $100,000 for the privilege of losing $400 to $500 every single month, you're not going to spend that. You could take that $100,000 and put it in a bank account at Bank of America, which has terrible interest rates, and do better for yourself, okay? That when Bank of America's interest rates are competing with the landlord's decision where he's going to put his $100,000, and that looks like a better investment, a checking account over there, which I don't even know if those have interest, that's better. Right, that's better. Losing no money is better than losing money. And that's the decision landlords are making. They're saying, you know what, I don't want to invest in this. And when people don't want to invest in something, all of these ideas that, we're going to
turn it over,
create stable homes, we're going to have better communities, we're going to make things better and more prosperous for everybody, that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Prosperous doesn't happen.
But I would say that let's figure out the cost. What is going up? What is the rising cost? If it's gas, if it's electricity, stuff like that, then yes, raise the rent. I understand that. But let's see what they're talking about versus just believing that, oh, no, I can't afford anything. Because some of these people, they just, no matter what you say, they're going to be like, yeah, I can't afford anything. I told this one landlord, like, get a fucking side job. You know, things happen, people don't pay rent on time. Get a side job. Get like a part-time job in the meantime. Like, I'm not going to talk so much about myself, but let's say I do have some kind of real estate. I still work. I got to work in case things break. I have to pay for that. You know, I have to get like like I say, I ain't gonna talk too much.
Unless you have profit attached to it. Nobody prospers in a system where everybody's expected to pay for everybody else's stuff forever, no matter how many people everyone entails. But it gets even worse.
I'm not against capitalism. I understand it. I understand the logic of costs go up, so I have to charge more rent. But at some point, someone is lying. Okay, $5,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment is excessive. Okay, $3,000 for a one-bedroom apartment is excessive. These landlords are always going to complain, oh no, I'm not making no money. They will say that even if they are making money. So a lot of them just don't believe them. Simple as that. Oh shit.
Is for making any money by capping what the landlord.
Burgos says that change made it far more difficult for landlords to renovate their properties without losing money.
Okay, so the reason you have a beautiful apartment on the screen here that somebody would love to live in and would love to pay for is because that apartment used to be like the one upstairs. But up until 2018, when you had an apartment that looked like the dump above this one, what would happen is if that person moved out, the landlord would have the apartment, it would be in their possession, and then they could renovate it and charge whatever they want for it. And that's what allowed these apartments to enter the housing system and become viable options for investment. You need a system that rewards investment, or investment's not going to be there. And if you're going to say, you know what? Landlords, you can have as many of these apartments as you want, but we're going to tell you how much you can charge them. We're going to cap prices. You end up with an investment that's better made in Bank of America with a checking account than in the building that costs millions of dollars and is in one of the most desirable locations in the entire country. How weird is that? How dumb is that? You're destroying a housing market with these tenant protections. These protections don't protect tenants. They make tenants homeless because there are no homes for those tenants to move into. And then you've got tenants that live in these homes and they can't get anything fixed because there's no money to fix it. The city's run out of money. The renters, landlords have run out of money because they're not making any money. They're losing money on these tenants. The entire thing is a disaster. We could have plenty of housing in New York City. New York City could fix this tomorrow. But the problem is the worst landlord in town wants to come along and take even more properties and do a terrible job on those as well. That's the solution we've got. It's not gonna work. It's already failing right in front of us.
Renovation specifically costs roughly $90,000 to $100,000 before 2019.
Wow.
So you imagine costs have gone up even since then.
The city's most recent housing and vacancy survey shows nearly 10,000 rent-stabilized apartments are vacant and unavailable.
There's more than that.
The highest level since the law went
That's
into
all
effect.
they know. That's what they know
While
about.
the city now offers landlords up to $50,000 per unit to fix apartments in severe disrepair, the mayor's office says there's been no eligible applications to date.
Oh, look at that. So the communist mayor has a system to give property owners $50,000 to renovate their apartments that are absolute disasters, but no eligible applicants. In a city where there are 8 million people living have applied to have their apartment fixed up and renovated. What a coincidence. So, hey, we've got government programs that are supposed to help these landlords, and we've got all the help in the world out there for them, but they're just so greedy, they're so stupid, we should take away their buildings. Like, this is how a takeover happens. You create a whole bunch of laws that cause these individuals to fail and go out of business. And then at the same time, you create a whole bunch of useless programs, and then you blame the people who are failing for not taking advantage of the programs none of them qualify for some reason. What a brilliant strategy to get as many properties as possible.
Okay, how do landlords, what the was qualify for the $50,000 repair? Is it a grant or something? I'm not sure. USDA Section 504 program. Loans to very low income home repair. Okay. Okay, who can apply? Either a homeowner or occupy the property. Be unable to obtain affordable credit elsewhere. Have a household income at or below the very low income limit. Branch be age 62 or older. Live in USD. Okay. You have to be a landlord in the urban area, like NYC, or not eligible for the USDA 504 grant. Okay. They can still qualify for the loan if they meet income. Okay. So this is a loan and a $10,000 grant. Okay.
And seize them and take them away and punish people who are evil and who have benefited from capitalism.
This thing stock that needs so much capital and so much support, and yet the plan is very thin on the details and the way in which the mayor hopes to address that problem.
Mayor Mamdani's administration argues in its housing plan that preserving affordable housing starts with cutting operating costs, which have surged since 2020. And the mayor says they will move to lower insurance, utility maintenance, and property tax burdens.
Oh, so the mayor's office that just came out and said they want to tax the rich and they want to raise taxes on everybody now says that the way to actually fix the housing situation here is to lower taxes. Really, we're getting a lot of doublespeak here. And as a mayor that campaigned on taxing the rich and on punishing landlords, how is he going to justify to the voters here when that doesn't happen, when he lowers their taxes? That's not going to happen. So we've got the same thing here. We've got the laws that force everybody to fail, and then the programs that are supposed to help them that nobody qualifies for, right? So this is going to be the exact same thing. There will be zero relief for somebody who is a property owner in New York City that wants to fix up their building. In fact, it's only going to get worse. And here's where this is going to lead, because you got to understand something. Once rents get frozen in about half the apartments in New York City, those tenants, things will be better for them for a very short period of time. Socialism always wins in the short run. It'll win for like a year or two before these buildings collapse. People say, hey, it's great, I'm saving. Mayor Mamdani saved me so much money in rent. But then what's going to happen is you're going to have people living in that nice apartment downstairs. It's a free market apartment. And their rent's going to keep going up to cover the cost for the apartments where the rent can't go up. So their rent's going to go up and up and up. So what's going to happen? The people living here, the people who are subsidizing everybody else, they're going to say, hey, mayor, help us out, man, help us out. And that's the other half of the voters that don't live in a rent-stabilized apartment. Then they're going to vote for rent stabilization too for their units. Then there's going to be zero profit in any building in New York City. And that is terrifying, people. There are people right now who could come into New York City and totally transform this place and fix our housing situation. They could build apartments. They could take over these derelict city-run buildings and totally transform those and get people in there. They could build more of them on these massive empty soccer fields that people can't get to because we don't have subways around here anyways. This place could have enough housing for everybody, but allowing that to happen would mean somebody made money. And it would mean somebody helped somebody else, and somebody could thank that person and say, oh, this is so great. I'm so glad these builders came in here and built these apartments. But the problem is they didn't come from the government. And socialism cannot have a competing system. If there's a competing system, it's always going to do better than socialism because socialism's never worked. So it's got to get rid of this private industry. Nobody can help anyone here unless it's the local government. That's how this works. That's why everything you're seeing in New York City is deliberate and is happening